I don't know. I'd like to first call this Town of New Shoreham Board of License Commissioners agenda to order. The only item on this agenda is to discuss and act on a new outdoor entertainment license for Two Tickets AI Management LLC. Members of that LLC are Gregory and Douglas Farron, doing business as the Atlantic Inn, 359 High Street, Plat 8, Lot 258. Is anybody here from those applicants?
Hey, Greg's on and Doug is on as well.
Ah, wonderful. We couldn't see you on the screen. How are you guys? Welcome.
Doing all right. Doing all right.
Excellent. You want to just sort of walk us through your plan, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. So our application is to transfer or I guess a new application, but we're seeking to keep the exact same outdoor entertainment options that the Atlantic Inn currently offers.
Right.
So weddings, which will be done by 9, the occasional, jazz, or blues music, duo, trio, quartet, things like that. Nothing, crazy or, no reggae fests or anything like that. So.
Right. Gotcha. Terrific. Are there any questions about this application? Molly?
I have a question for Millie. Does this application vary in any way from what the previous license holder had?
No, and these applications are pretty much set by ordinance. The ordinance is pretty strict about where they can perform and what the hours are, et cetera.
Terrific. Any other questions? Really welcome, guys. Really happy for Ann and Brad and happy for you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Sven?
appreciate it.
I would entertain a motion to approve new outdoor entertainment license for Two Tickets AI Management LLC.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it. That matter is passed.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you all. Really appreciate
You
it.
have to stay for the rest of the meeting, Greg.
Yes.
Otherwise, it can be rescinded. at the end of the meeting.
Really appreciate it. And
Billy, do I have to adjourn the license commissioners meeting? Okay, motion to adjourn license commissioners.
All right, thanks all. We'll step away.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, no. We're now call to order the town council meeting for Monday, February 6th at 7:06 p.m. Is there any comment from the public tonight? Come aboard, Chris. Identify yourself. Make sure the green light is on. You know the drill.
Now it's on. Hello? Okay. I have 2 items for discussion as public comment. The first is the United States and its allies are involved in what is tantamount to an undeclared war with a choice between freedom or tyranny and subjugation. The weapon of choice is energy, which is being used by countries hostile to us, such as Russia, Iran, and China, to extend their dominion over the people of the world. In my 30 some odd years of living here, I've never seen awareness of the consequences of our actions at such a low level. And in this case, specific to our use of natural resources. That is, despite repeated requests and direction on how we as a community can reduce our use of energy that is needed by our allies around the world, and especially in Europe today. As a community, we should all be aware that Black Island Power Company has presented extremely slanted and inaccurate analysis on customer generation, further enabling Russian influence over our world by instituting policies that hold us captive. We have presented to them more sophisticated analysis and received only rejection without any factual dispute of the information. Does not a town employee sit on their board? The town is the largest energy consumer of electricity on Block Island, I believe, and we still have relatively little proactive involvement in how our energy taxpayer dollars are spent. Specific to the town, for many years, I present information and methods to reduce our energy bill. Most recently, I relayed this as a way to fund a position to help develop affordable and attainable housing. We have at least 2 employees with responsibility in this area, one who is on the BIPCO board. My question, which I'm asking you to answer at a future meeting as an agenda item is, what action is the town taking towards reducing our uneconomic and inefficient use of our natural resources, including electricity, fossil fuels, and water? BIPCO never upgraded their energy efficiency programs as promised, but there are some things even this program might be able to help us with. There has been almost no activity in this program outside of the measures that would have increased their sales, according to the companies I've spoken with. This has been an outstanding request for years, and no response has been received. Tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars have been lost, maybe hundreds at this point. Under the concept of the mouse that roared, we are the smallest town in the smallest state. Could we not make a declaration that we engage in the actions of energy efficiency and energy policy, dedicating the energy we save towards those countries that are fighting for their lives or soon will be? Such a pronouncement may be replicated throughout the state, and then who knows where it will lead. I can tell you the opportunities exist, and it is our local, national, and financial interest to take action. Thank you, Chris Warfel.
Thank you, Chris.
My second public comment has to do with a news letter that I get weekly. And in it, the USDA awarded $9.4 million in 45 compost and food waste reduction projects. And I have a list of a short list of those to demonstrate that we certainly could have submitted. I know that there's an agenda item on grants and how we should focus our resources on that. 15 years ago, at least, we issued a model to the town and a report on composting and its economics for the town. Every few years, I come back to you and talk to you about this, and I know certain town council members would like to see this happen. Obviously, nothing's happened. So I'm going to give you each a copy of this.
Thank
It's
you.
a very short one-pager. And I ask you to please, there's only so much we can do, right? We do the modeling, we give you the economics, and then you have to take the next step. That work costs you nothing. And I have always suspected that people value work at what it costs. So nothing has happened, and it's time, way past time, for us to do something about that. So here is some information for you to help you go along that path.
Thank you, Chris.
And thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? All right, then. Let's move to our consent agenda. Millie, I just had one question. There was a note from Neil, I hope he's okay, requesting a change in one of the minutes, which Laurel said had been made.
She mentioned to me that she took that action. I didn't.
Okay, all right. Well, we're gonna trust. Motion to approve the consent agenda, if there are no other questions.
What was the change that was made?
It was not, if I recall correctly, not terribly substantive. It was a confusion about something that Neil had said during the meeting. It's a clarification.
Okay.
You gonna read them or not? Second on that motion.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Those are approved. Now I'd like to convene the public hearing to discuss and act on proposed amendment to the Town of New Shoreham zoning ordinance, section 518, accessory family dwelling units. Hi, Allison.
Hi, good evening.
Can you walk us through this, please?
Sure. So the planning board back in October voted to send the proposed zoning amendments related to accessory family dwelling units to the town council for your review and consideration for adoption. The section in the zoning ordinance, section 518, relating to accessory family dwelling units, was created in 2018. And this is to allow accessory family dwelling units for occupancy by by family members 62 years of age or older, or disabled family members. And for this to be allowed by right, as required by state law. So these amendments make some minor changes to that section because state law was changed in 2022. The definition of and standards for accessory dwelling units changed the last legislative session, so that the type of housing must be not limited to within or connected to a single family dwelling unit, but should also be permitted in within the single family dwelling unit. How New Shoreham zoning ordinance currently for this section 518, is that how it's currently written is that the unit has to be within or connected to the single family dwelling and not in accessory structures. So these amendments will now allow for accessory family dwelling units to be in an accessory structure as required by state law, because the definition of accessory dwelling units changed and the standards. So we're bringing this section into compliance with state law with these proposed zoning amendments.
Thank
So
you,
they're
Allison.
fairly minor changes, and I know it does get a little confusing because we have other sections of the zoning ordinance, like everyone's probably more familiar with our 513 section, which is more general, right? So this section of the zoning ordinance was created kind of to address the state requirements for accessory family dwelling units, allowing them by right, allowing them to not have to conform with specific dimensional standards. So a little more leniency here
Mhm.
because they're
Mhm.
specific for seniors and disabled family members.
Gotcha. Thank you, Allison. Any questions for Allison?
I have one. So is any part of this not directly related to this change upstate?
What is, okay, I understand your question. Yes, so yes, there are some other minor changes. So if you look through the track changes, so obviously clearly C1, that standard is proposed to be stricken because it's specific to that being connected to and accessible to the principal family dwelling and not an accessory structure. So that's removed to be consistent with state law. There are some minor changes, like we, as you know, we went through 513 recently and made some amendments. So trying to compare the two sections and make sure they were a little, they were consistent in regards to local standards. So it talks about making sure the property is served by municipal sewer. We added in water and water, instead of just sewer, that it also, if it is to be served by water, that's certified part of the file, right? That the allocation, there's proof of allocation for that. So not just for sewer. So that was proposed for added in. This a minor tweak of instead of saying zoning officer, saying zoning official. That's how it's written in the rest of the zoning ordinance. So we're just trying to bring that to make it more consistent. And then there currently was no maximum number of units. So we added in that there shouldn't be more than 2 dwelling units per lot. So say you have your single family and this is the second dwelling, your accessory family dwelling unit. So establishing that maximum density that was not in the current ordinance for this section.
So when you say
And-
not, Sorry, can I ask a question? So
yeah.
when you say not more than two, you mean not more than two 518s or not more than two dwelling units total?
Total. Yeah, it's written, as it's written here would be total, so,
Okay.
yeah. And the final addition here, really more procedural, but speaks to, because it's a by right use, I wouldn't go before a board. The accessory family dwelling unit shall be subject to approval by the zoning official upon confirmation, that it's in compliance with local and state code, right? So that just kind of more procedural addition.
Any more, Molly?
Yeah, I have a comment that's a question that's not specific to the ordinances before us. So if Sven does.
Well, I do, yeah. So Allison, I don't know if now's the time to do it or at the next planning board town council meeting. I think I understand why one would say not more than two dwelling units on any lot. But if I've now got a 513, I'm making this up, obviously hypothetical. If I've got a 513 on my land and somebody's there living year round and everything's good, and now my parents need to move in and it's now a 518 also. I've now got to make a choice of whether I'm having my parents come in or I'm asking this person to leave.
Well, I understand
So
your
I guess
question,
my
but I would
question is, how do you
also,
deal with that?
I would also think of, New Shoreham having section 513. You can have a second 513. So I would, I guess, say, use the 513 ordinance. It doesn't exclude, your 513 zoning ordinance doesn't exclude by age or disability, right? So that you could put two 513s.
So I guess the second.
It's just that
question-
you wouldn't be able to not have, you wouldn't be able to not satisfy the dimensional standards as this ordinance does, because that's the state law. So,
So the second part, so I'm not quite comfortable with the answer. I got it. I'm just not sure from a policy point of view, I'm really comfortable with it.
yeah,
But-
I get
but-
it. It's confusing. The two are like,
It's not
It-
confusing. I just don't know that I agree.
well,
with it.
it's that we're trying to meet, the state law is kind of evolving on this, and I fully expect next year to have to come back with more amendments related to accessory dwelling units.
I don't believe it's a state law that says no more than two. That's a town.
No, I was speaking to the dimensional standards, as far as you don't need to meet setbacks and things such as that, where 513 you do.
Yep. Then the second question is, are you comfortable that all of these are actually in sync? All of these meaning 513, 518, 19, 435, all those, are they in sync, or are we sort of passing the ships in the night that they don't quite all sync up?
In what regard?
Number of residences on a lot, consistency on dimensionality, consistency on in the house versus secondary ADU type thing. Like, are we? So
Well,
you just told me a trick to get around having my parents on the lot, which is two 513s, but that's not the principle of 519. So I'm wondering if we need to do, like we
There-
discussed before, a review of those zoning ordinances to make sure that they're consistent among each other.
Well, they're in separate sections, and they're inconsistent by design, by purpose, I guess. And it's because one is to make sure we're compliant with state law, and the other is more crafted for local policy, that we don't necessarily want all accessory dwelling units to be potentially opened up to what this section allows for those specific categories. So it's a policy decision. I mean, that's how it's been approached that way in the past. In your zoning ordinance, there's always been a subsection. Even prior to 2018, there was a subsection of 513 called handicap accessible apartments, and there were different standards for that.
Right.
And for good reason, right? And so that language, we changed it. We put it into a different section so it wouldn't get confusing in 2018. And had to change it so that it would be consistent with state law for those specific circumstances. But you also have a section 513 that is generous and allows dwelling units, accessory dwelling units. But it's just whether or not the town wants to apply the standards for disabled and senior family members to all the general public and accessory dwelling units that you are permitting under 513. So I would say, like, when it's a policy decision for it to not be consistent currently, but it could be reassessed.
Yeah, I have more, but I want Martha to ask her more general question because mine is a kind of a general, a bit of a general question.
Well,
too.
my question is more of a comment downstream. And it's not, there's nothing to, am I on? Has nothing to do with the ordinance at hand. Has there been any conversation about revisiting the requirement, in particular, that any of these multi-unit, for lack of a better word, developments be on the sewer system? Because these ordinances go rather predate some of the more high-tech systems that are available today. And it seems that we're wedding ourselves to systems that are putting our water back out in the ocean instead of back into the ground. And that's just a comment. That's not anything that requires any kind of answer or you're able to answer tonight. I just wanted to put that out there.
So this ordinance raises an issue that I feel like I have every time we talk about some section of some accessory structure part of our ordinances. And I consider myself someone who actually is I'm a really strong supporter of this, but I find myself more confused rather than less confused over time about what's permissible. And that could well be, in all likelihood, a shortcoming in my intellectual capacity. But I do think it does strike me that it might be worthwhile to have, a 1 or 2 pager that says, I want to build an accessory structure. What can I do? And if your intention is to build it for someone who is over 60 and qualifies for 518, here's what the rules are. If your intention is to build an affordable year round, here's what the rules are. And that's not a tonight thing, Allison, but it just strikes me that you point out, I think, very clearly, and I couldn't agree more, that this gets more and more attention, not just in Rhode Island, but elsewhere. And it strikes me that there might be some value in having a really straightforward kind of almost like an index card that tells you what, if this, then that, around these accessory buildings. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, a summary sheet, right, like a 1-page for the public coming in, that might be, that they're coming into town hall, I want to explore that, that there's a summary.
And
Yes, of course. And that goes for other types
sure.
of developments.
I don't say that just, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I know how helpful Jen is, and I know I know how helpful you are, and this is I think clearly there's consensus around using these accessory structures to fulfill multiple policy objectives. Year-round market rate, year-round affordable, caregivers, apartments,
Keep making it worse.
you know, but I mean, in other
No,
words.
I know exactly.
Yeah.
If I may,
Yeah, please.
I think, I hope Keith is trying to say what I've been trying to say for a while. It feels as though it gets more and more complicated, and we don't have a simple, comprehensive outline, a place where people can start before they dive into the asking questions without even beginning to know where they're going. Is that what we're talking about? That sort of.
Exactly.
But I also think it gets, it gets confusing when they're not consistent.
Oh, absolutely.
And
That's
so then you start to figure out, okay, I can go that way and get a little bit more square footage, or I can go this way, and then you're boggled.
well, I think if you have them lined up in a way that isn't go to this section, go to this section, go to that section, it's easier to see those inconsistencies.
You know, sorry,
oh.
Molly, go ahead.
No, is that all right? Allison,
please.
can I ask you a question? So I understand that the provision is for someone 62 years or older, right? So a homeowner builds one of these for their parent, then their parent moves to another location, or they sell the house. What's the transition? I don't see a plan here for the transition of the 518. So if there's a new homeowner, does that automatically have to convert to a 513? What's the plan? What happens then? Or does the new homeowner think that they've just gotten a 2-unit dwelling and that they can rent to any, you know what I mean? Like, because there seems to be some misunderstanding on house transfers.
It's a good question.
So what's the end game on this?
No, it doesn't automatically become it needs to be abandoned, as my understanding, but I'm not, I see, not to put Tom on the spot, I see you in the room, you might know better than I do as far as from a zoning enforcement type of situation with the other, I know it's outlined in the 513s, it's not outlined here. And I don't know, it might be a state. My understanding is you can't, you receive this by right for that specific purpose, and it can't, just because you change ownership, be used as like a weekly rental or something. But I don't know the specifics as far as enforcement and how that actually, what needs to be removed from the unit or you reapply. I don't know right now. I don't want to answer, I guess, without knowing for sure what the process would be.
So I guess my follow-up question is, should we approve this with no, like without
Well-
knowing, like where does
Well,
it
what
come
you're,
from?
well, this is you can approve, right now it's not consistent with state law. So the purpose of this zoning amendment, most of this is currently what you have on the books now, with the exception of, but it's restricting it to only be in or connected to a single family dwelling unit. So the important thing is to remove that and allow it in accessory structures to be compliant with state law. So that, I would say, is the main purpose and concern of tonight's meeting. We're not really proposing, if there's things we want to look at, evaluate further, we're not changing anything that's related to your question, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Right,
go
so
ahead.
I guess what I'm thinking is that, if what we're approving is language to make it more consistent with what the state has changed their language to be, right? So if we're just making it consistent with the state's language, that's one thing, but I think we have to like toss this back at the zoning board and say,
Well,
like,
it's-
we're not really prepared to actually approve any of these until there's, enforcement is kind of a buzzword around here in a bad way.
I think there's,
like-
Go ahead, Martha.
there's one easy solution to this, that, and this has happened before, and I always resented it, for lack of, again, a better word. If we have changes in the state law that have to be made, why can't we simply get the proposal that is only for that without having to go through and, well, what is been thrown in here to slide it in now, which is the way it feels, regardless of what the intent is. And it would keep it a lot cleaner, make it a lot simpler. We would have stopped all this talking a long time ago, and this would have been done. And we end up spending all this time trying to decipher what's really the state law. And this isn't the first time this has happened. And what has to be done, and what, oh, we'll add it now, well, we've got the chance and it's open. And I just see that's bad policy.
Okay. Allison, is there a timetable on this one? Like it's got to be to state law by March 1st kind of thing? Or do we have time? Just a question of the clock.
No, I'm not aware of it, there's no specific time frame, I should say. I mean, it's currently not consistent with state law, and it will continue to be until we amend it.
This is a public hearing and we have a member of the public who would like to speak. Kim, come on up.
Hi, Kim Gavitt. Just 2 points. One, to follow up on the discussion that's happening now. The standards, number 6, says when the property is conveyed to a new owner or the occupant of the accessory family dwelling unit no longer reside in it, use of the living area as an accessory family dwelling unit is no longer permitted. The use may be resumed only by the recording of a new declaration of accessory family dwelling unit. That's very much akin to what happens with the 518. You have to supply an affidavit every 3 years to prove that you're still using it in an appropriate way. And we've heard recently from Jen, the enforcement officer, I believe, that that there are no enforcement issues in that part of it. And I would say most of the enforcement issues don't have to do with these sections. They have to do with people just ignoring the building codes.
Right.
So that's just a follow up on that discussion we're having.
Thank
But
you.
since this is a public hearing, and the other thing to follow up on what Sven was saying about, I've got an accessory, if I had an accessory dwelling, 513, I build this for my family member. Now I have 3. This number 7 is a policy decision. And I would ask you, we're in a community that needs housing in all kinds of ways. People are not going to go, as we have seen, they're not breaking down the doors to use these things to. So I think as a policy, you should not limit it to 2 if one of the 2 is the accessory family dwelling unit.
Mhm.
So I would ask you
Thank you,
not to
Kim.
do that. Thank you.
Thank
Can
you, Kim.
I, in follow up to that, and this may have been the question Sven asked, but I'm going to ask it again. Allison, if you look at sub 7, no accessory, the subsection that Kim was just referring to, is that in state law?
No.
Okay. Well, I think we should agenda this for another meeting, or,
Since
you
there's no
know, because
timetable,
I
I'm not
don't,
sure why we have
yeah, I think there are enough questions that.
I think it's important to have our zoning ordinances in compliance with state law as soon as we can. But again, I would really be far more comfortable with acting on things that are only required by the state and have policy decisions clearly separate apart and not thrown under the same blanket.
Does that make sense to you, Marion?
Yes, and what I'll do is I'll work with Allison on outlining what's really required by state law. And
Yeah, I think
and
that's
what,
one of the.
you know,
things that-
because I'm looking at this, there's a lot that's required by state law, and then the definition was strictly something that the council already adopted.
Right,
Now we're
yes.
here, so it
yes,
seems like
exactly.
the bulk of it may be state law and what we've already done, and maybe just number 7. So let me spend a little bit of time working with Allison on this and
Thank you.
and come back with it.
Thank you.
But that's what I'm doing as I look at.
Thank you very much, Allison, for your help on this.
So let's do this within a month or so.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we don't want it to drag on.
No.
'Cause then suddenly timetables are upon us. We've seen that happen.
We can continue this.
Or
Not if-
can't we continue?
not if we're just striking things.
Just continue the hearing, don't close.
Do we have to have a date certain?
for the hearing. It's my understanding, probably.
we
Nick,
have to
help me out
continue
here.
to
If
a
we're
date certain?
continuing this public hearing
Yeah.
on this ordinance, I would assume it would have to go date certain.
Correct. Yes.
So what I would
Alright.
suggest is do it the first Monday of March. Can you have that meeting?
First Monday in March.
Hold on. I'm getting it.
March 6th. The only thing, I will not be here on March 6th. That's the only thing. If you're okay with.
Are you
us.
here on the 8th? Or that week are you gone?
I'll be back. I'm at a conference with the trust. so-
We could do it on, it's a work session on the 8th. Or it's a meeting on the 15th.
Yeah.
But that's a budget meeting.
Does it, if there's gonna be significant changes to this current draft, does that need to be then re-advertised and not?
So-
Like,
But I-
if I'm just gonna come, because you don't want anything unrelated to state law, so it would just be that one sentence stricken probably. So
My
you want to only
understanding is-
move forward with those? Are we separating it for next month?
So
Does
what
it
I,
then need to be re-advertised? Just
so
something.
what
to
I
keep
would
in mind.
suggest is the continuance and allow us to talk through that. Because if it's a substantive change to the ordinance as was advertised, then she's right. We would have to re-advertise that.
What's-
My understanding is if it's less than, if none of the major words change, but you take pieces out, then yes, it may be a change, but it's within the framework that was posted.
Well, if we had to re-notice everything that we amend, we would never get anything passed. So I assume that we can, that there's a reason that it comes to us. So what date did we decide? March 6th? Marianne, are you comfortable with?
I think I'm comfortable because I'll have everything in place with
Allison
Allison
will have
and
some
Nick
sense
and
of that.
stuff like
Great,
that.
terrific.
Yeah, I would go. March 6th.
Martha, you want to make a motion to continue this to March 6th?
Move to continue the public hearing on the amendment to the town zoning ordinance, section 15, accessory dwelling units to March 6th at 7.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Item number 5, resolution regarding signature authority for USDA rural development loan and grant application. John, you want to come forward and you and Marianne walk us through what we're doing here?
This is you guys have a resolution. in
Hi,
front of
John.
you.
How are
Hey,
you
how are you? I'm John Brunig, Water Superintendent, sorry. I'll do a PSA if you haven't checked your house. and
Yeah.
you don't live here,
Yeah.
Go and check your house.
No, John, please do. Make it a little, just,
Yeah,
could we ask, just for,
briefly, yeah, go and check your house. We responded to or found at least 15 freeze ups. Many of them were pretty bad damage. So it was an unprecedented event, I think, in a lot of people who've been here to have it that cold and that windy. So yeah, check your houses if you're not around, and have your house checker go, because a lot of stuff happened. And I only know about the stuff in the water district. I don't know about the
Right,
stuff outside.
Right, good point.
So what you have in front of you is a resolution. It's similar to a resolution that was passed for the water main replacement, and also for this ongoing sewer pump station upgrades. It's just changed to the applications that we're doing now. There's 2 projects. One's already been awarded for our well 6 replacement. It's an aging well that's being replaced, I hope, hopefully next month. We learned about this. It's called an EGWEG application. It's emergency funding that's surrounding the drought. That's not a grant loan. That's a full 100% grant that would pay for that well. It says in my letter, it says 250. It's really 286,000 when you add in engineering services and everything. And then the second one is the larger project, which we're calling the water improvements projects, to include well field expansion, water storage capacity expansion, and treatment expansion. So that's our larger project that we've been talking about at our previous meeting.
Yep.
That would expand the water capacity of of those 3 phases of our facility. And that's a big application, and that's a grant loan application. Indications are we'll get 45, 55, which has been kind of the going USDA rural development that we've been getting over the last 20 years or so. So this gives me signature authority on the application to be able to sign the certifications on the application. It doesn't give me authority to sign a $2 million loan that is signed by Mary Ann. This is just the application process. I think that was asked in the last time I came to this, so I wanted to, once it gets to the, that has to go to the town financial meeting and go through, this is just the application process.
Right, and in order to have the timing work out, we have to start this process.
Yeah, and we're, Jim, Jeremy and I we're there. This is pretty much a formality on USDA's end. So Jim and I have been working really hard over the last 3 weeks to get these things done.
I really appreciate the work you're doing on this, man. I know it's a lot, and I just wanted to say that.
No, thank you. It is a lot.
Public forum, I know
The
it's-
bigger project is a large projects with a lot of disciplines, and it's,
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Are there any questions for John about this resolution? I would accept a motion to, I gotta read what I'm supposed to be saying. A motion to enable signature authority for the USDA Rural Development Loan Grant application. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Sign away.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I think we have a meeting planned sometime later on in early March. so
Yeah, I was gonna
see you
bring
there
that up.
for
I-
Kind of an update, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
thank you very
Thank
much,
you, guys.
John.
Thanks, Sean.
Oh, God, I don't know. We got more rain in that week and a half that we probably got from May, June, July, August, I would say, in that week and a half. I think it was like 6 or 7 inches in that week and a half. Yeah. It's kind of started to come back up a little bit. It just is above the intake structure, so it's around average now. A little slightly below, I'd call it, but yeah. What? Yeah, it takes a while. The smaller ponds will fill up quick, but the bigger ponds seem to take a little bit longer, but it's slightly below. but not bad. Yeah, glad to see some water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, see you later.
Thank you so much, John. All right, item 6, discuss and act on request of Scenic Block Island asking that the town apply to the Scenic Roadways Board for scenic roadways status.
Hi.
We have a bunch of scenic roadways people here tonight. Fantastic. We're gonna put this on the agenda every week so that we increase our attendance.
There we go. Anyway, all right, Roberta McCormick, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the Board of Scenic Block Island. And we hope you've had a chance to read the documents that Nancy Pike sent to you. We're here to request that the town council agree to complete the application process that will result in all or most of our roads receiving the designation of Rhode Island Scenic Highway. The state of Rhode Island established a Scenic Highway Board over 25 years ago because it recognized that many roads in our state are beautiful and they pass through beautiful areas. The state board interprets its purposes as the following. Scenic vistas in Rhode Island are a very important part of its beauty, natural environment, history, and culture of Rhode Island, both to persons living in Rhode Island and its visitors. Identifying, designating, promoting, protecting, and preserving scenic roadways has valuable aesthetic, cultural, social, and economic benefits to our citizens. While many towns in the state have been receiving this designation for one or several specific roads within their borders, the current chairman of the state board, Mike DeLuca, who is very familiar with Block Island, has assured us that most, if not all of our roads would qualify for this designation. The Board of Scenic Block Island feels the time has come for us to start protecting our beautiful roads and vistas. At the very least, this designation will be a source of pride for our island. In addition, this designation will give the owners of property along our roads and all our residents a sense of stewardship in protecting and preserving the aesthetics of our roads, excuse me, and vistas along these roads. In the future, this designation can help our town develop guidelines for development along our roads. The state board exists to help towns and property owners make decisions that enhance rather than detract from the landscape once they have been granted the scenic highway designation. Scenic Block Island strongly feels the time has come for this council to realize we are in danger of losing some of what makes our island so special. We're already seeing subtle signs of gentrification, new stone walls being constructed that do not look like our older walls, dirt and shell driveways being replaced with fancy pavers or asphalt, fences going up, and plantings along the side of the road with potential for obstructing long-range vistas. We need to help educate property owners as to what types of changes will enhance our roads and which changes need to be rethought. Having the designation of Rhode Island Scenic Highway will allow us access to the resources of the state board should we want to do so. Having this designation does not obligate us to do anything other than acknowledge the intrinsic value of our roads and vistas. But it is a starting point should the time arise when we feel we need specific guidelines for future development. At that point, we can seek guidance from the State Board of Scenic Highways. Our board feels this is an opportunity that we now need to take advantage of. We are in danger of being seriously impacted if safeguards are not in place. So we're asking the town council to make a commitment to place this topic on the agenda in the near future for discussion. Mike DeLuca, chairman of the state board, is easily accessible by email and phone and is aware that this is being brought up tonight. He is very enthusiastic about Block Island working towards this designation and is more than willing to attend a council meeting. We hope you will invite him to speak to you, to answer any questions you may have, and we look forward to continued discussion on this timely opportunity. Two of our board members, Nancy Pike and Mike Shea, are here with me tonight to help answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Any questions?
Sure, I'll start, and I don't know who wants to answer. In your eyes, what are the adverse unintended consequences? Scenic Block Island, asking, for getting this and handling it.
Wouldn't they be intended consequences now?
Unintended
Unintended consequences. So what I mean by unintended consequences, does it, suddenly not enable, I'm making it up, sweeping, or does it not enable suddenly road paving the way we want to? Does it not enable, are there consequences that other towns have had that, especially from the road crew point of view, is really what I'm thinking about, that could impact?
Mike Shea, Scenic Block
Hi, Mike.
Island and Highway Superintendent. I can't think of one.
Okay.
That would negatively impact.
I mean, I see all the positives. I'm just thinking more of, is there suddenly, next thing you know, you're supposed to have 5 feet on the sides and we don't always have 5 feet. So you suddenly run into
I think one of the
run
most
into something.
important things of this designation is that the Scenic Roadways Board is not enforcement.
Right.
They're more of education and working with the property owners, whoever it might be, might be a town, it might be a state project, might be a private project. Just give them more ideas. Just a quick example. Somebody wants to put up a stockade fence between, by the roadway. Obviously, it doesn't fit in. It's not going to look good. It doesn't fit in the Block Island Center. They might, talk to the property owner and recommend a split rail fence, something to that effect, just to keep the character, in little subtle ways.
So especially Mike, I'm really was thinking really of you or big, write-off project coming down the road. So as far as you see, there are no, you can't salt suddenly, or you can't, things like that. Okay, that's good, perfect. Thank you.
One thing I will add too, I think it would
or it would definitely give us leverage as far as having more of a say in what we want to fit in there. And it also opens up the doors to more Federal Highway Administration money, the potential to different signage, whatever it might be.
I spoke briefly with Mike this afternoon. Could you just run through the signs, the guardrails, the things that we were talking about?
An example, guardrails have always been an eyesore out here, and it's always been a sore spot for a lot of folks ever since they went in. And that's been brought up with RIDOT, and with this project we've got coming up in the next few years, guardrails are going to be replaced. There's federal standards that the guardrails have to adhere to. But what they would do is they would put in the metal guardrails, but they now make them in brown. So they would more fit in more of a, an earth tone type color as opposed to something, a galvanized one. It's a subtle change. Probably not the absolute best idea, but it's certainly better than the galvanized guardrails. Little things like that. And they've done that in Route 1 in Charlestown, which has the scenic highways designation. Same situation. They didn't want those ugly galvanized guardrails, and they used the brown ones. And every time you drive to Westerly, you can check them out. But they also had to put in those guardrails to divide the highway because of the many head-on collisions they were having in that area. So subtle things.
Martha?
The only other thing was, this will not result in another town board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That was sort of like after Mike peeled me off the ceiling and convinced me that wasn't going to happen.
Exactly. This is a discussing.
Application.
Marianne, do you have any thoughts on this? I mean, to put you on the spot. But
I think I'm still somewhat confused and I'm not clear as to how the process all takes place. So if someone's going to put up a fence or something, what is the mechanism to get to the state board? Who does that? And maybe these are questions like Roberta said, maybe it'll be good to invite Mike down to a
Great.
meeting
Yeah.
because
So
I'm not clear on
should
that.
that be our
And
action item that we invite him to come?
Yeah,
to-
that's what I'm
to- to
thinking.
a
And
couple of our
we can
meetings?
ask
Okay,
these
great.
questions.
He can certainly
make
answer
sense?
questions.
Yeah.
It does
That's
to
what
me.
I
I'd
think.
like to get a commitment from them that they're really going
I
to.
mean, we could start a meeting maybe at 6 and just
Yeah,
6:30.
I think that's a really good
And
idea.
ask questions because I'm not clear.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think that would be great because
Wonderful.
he's done this with other communities. So
The- the-
he'll be able to
the un-
answer a lot of our
yeah.
questions.
One of
We'll
the
probably
unintended-
present to answer all our questions before we ask them.
One of the unintended consequences I was most worried about, and I think will get addressed, is state boards versus town. And this gets to Martha's thing. I mean, I love the state of Rhode Island, but I really don't want to have them more in our shorts on, what's right and what's not right. So therefore, like, how does that all work? And I think we'll find that out.
I agree, but this board is like-minded with us.
Yeah.
Got
so
it.
they.
In what we want to do.
oh, this is one of the good boards.
Other boards,
Yeah, we've heard that before. No, I think that's a great next step.
Just a quick answer to that question as far as how does it get to the board? And again, Michael could probably answer it better than I, but in an email I received from him, he had mentioned building department, highway department could come from the town council for recommendation to scenic roadways board. But he could probably, like I say, answer that more in length and detail.
This
Thank
is
you. Thank you.
really interesting and worthwhile. So at our upcoming meeting, and we'll let you guys know, we'll have that presentation. Chris?
Chris Warfel, I didn't know this is on the agenda tonight, but based on my experience with planning, I have several questions. The roads that are being considered, are they all public and private roads? Okay.
State and town.
All right. uh, Primarily state. We have in my opinion, a problem with planning on many levels, and in particular, in this case, would be their solar ordinance, in which the planning board chair in particular, and supported by the majority, passed what I thought was a pretty regressive ordinance on solar ground mounted, where it cannot be placed in the front of a property. And as you know, the front setback is kind of arbitrary, but I would consider that probably it's going to be roadside. The ordinance is so restricted. It's far worse than if you were going to build a building in the front of your property. Without using a variance or a special use permit, you cannot build anything with solar from your property line to your front door. And I am worried that the scenic designation will play into planning's misfortunate ordinance, which I'm hoping that will be changed very soon. So I would like to know, what guarantees do we have from scenic Block Island or the state that they would not see that technology or other technologies as being not in keeping with whatever someone's own opinion is of what is scenic.
So one of the reasons I'm really pleased that Mike and Nancy and the McCormicks brought this to our attention is we're on a sort of fact-finding, questioning road here. So I would encourage you, when we have that meeting scheduled, to ask that question of the guy from DOT, because I don't think sort of the point is that none of us is an expert on this. So we'll do our best to make ourselves and the community as expert as we can be. And it's only with questions like that that we can be.
Yeah, again, I did not realize this on the agenda, so I just sent
Yeah.
out a flare.
Yes, thank you, Chris. All right, so we've finished number 6. Number 7, discuss public safety complex planning status and next steps. Mary
So,
Ann,
yeah, why don't
wanna
you let me
start?
run with this? And then
Great.
I'm gonna have Tom jump in a little bit here. Just to, for the new council member that's here, and a reminder to the older council members that are here, I guess. Let's go to memory lane a little bit so we realize how we got to where we are. If you remember correctly, last year about this time, we were in negotiations to purchase a piece of property where we could put the highway the fire bond. And we also had funds budgeted in our 23 budget to purchase the property. Then about mid-April, we found out that that land was no longer available. So at that point, we decided obviously to take the money we had put in the budget of the 400,000 and take that out. At that point, we decided to look at different town land properties that could potentially be a location for this particular facility. And during the summer, I walked in to see Chris Hobie while Tom was looking at different properties, and we're going back and forth. And he said, I have an idea. So he gave me this idea, and he was, with his little hand showing me how to do it. And I said, Chris, I think this is a great idea, but you need to go talk to Tom Rism, because Tom's the one who's the facilities director and can walk through. So since that time, they've been working with Jim Jeremiah to see if the property, which is where the current fire barn is located, is a good place to site this building. I'm going to now turn it over to Tom, because he can address what he's worked on and some of the concerns and questions that have come up with Jim Jeremiah as they proceed with this. So Tom, do you want to update him as to where you are with that?
Good evening, Tom Reesum here. You want to start with the fire barn? Okay, so this is going to blend into the next item. but just let that happen.
Yep.
So yeah, that was the chronology as we went into the fall, and we did work with Jim Jeremiah on several plans. Kirk and Chris and Mike all had some good ideas for a building that would be basically cut into the bank from the Ocean Avenue side and would still have an upper floor egress onto the Beach Avenue side. Most of the plans that Jim were coming up with required that the barn, the rescue barn would have to be moved off the site. And I know they've talked to your family about that,
Yes.
and would make use of it during the construction and then some other plan out afterwards. But it also was problematic for what we do with the fire trucks in the meantime, because if you're digging into that bank, the length of a fire truck plus the length of an apron, then you couldn't do that. Just tonight, I was, and we talked about it before, that there must be a way to do that by rotating it. We've got some fiber optic cables running through there. We got the power coming through there. If any of you know, going up Ocean Avenue, south to north, there's a cut in the wall there that goes in.
Oh, right.
And that's about as far south as we can go for the CRMC line to where the New Harbor comes into Negus Park.
Great. Yep.
So we're held.
Tom, I'm sorry, before we go any further, because directions may be crazy, but we're just for discussion. we're
Can you
figuring
throw up one of those
oceans
plans?
running
Or I can do it.
west, right?
Tom.
No, no.
Oh.
We're just presuming this ocean is running east and west the whole way, right?
I'm gonna give you a sketch in a second,
Is this one?
but it's the one that, another one that we have. Let's see.
Directions over here make it crazy.
I don't have this, but
The sun setting and you have.
I got it. Set- Do that. And then open up, hit the arrow there and make it full screen, the diagonal arrow. There you go. All right, so this is the plan that does take down the firehouse, and it's not gonna work, but
It's not gonna work.
well, I mean, it doesn't, we have to take down the old firehouse. But just to show you, but this is Ocean Avenue, power plant's down here. This is that cut up.
Yeah.
So as you're traveling south to north, it's on the edge of Negus Park. And it's the limit basically for the CRMC line off the water. There's a message.
Where's David Lewis when we need him?
So, yeah, that orients you. Now, this would be, the upper level, and those rectangles would be the smaller apparatus, the ambulances, in fact, that would go out onto Beach Avenue. If Millie, you could go to the other one. And this is just a proposal, not where we are. Yeah, right. So this would be the lower level, showing trucks coming out of a too deep bay, basically under where the firehouse is now, coming out onto Ocean Avenue. You with me, Martha?
Yeah, it was just these places.
Okay. So this is a plan. Now, it's not going to work because you have to tear down the firehouse to do it unless someone has a big tent somewhere. We need a place to put all the equipment. And it's not just the trucks, it's all the breathing apparatus, compressors, oxygen generators, all the other stuff that needs to be in a structure. What this did was, if you look toward the top, you see a little gap between the police barn and the fire barn that would give you a drive through. But a plan that I don't have on the screen that Kirk, it was on your counter. Let me get it back.
This is the one we have. Yes, yes.
That would, yeah, the green thing, that would provide you, a building that could do most of both. It would probably, our plan is, as with all town municipal projects now, is to have, housing above on a third floor. So you would have a sub-level going out to ocean, a mid-level going out onto beach with offices and equipment rooms, and then offices and apartments perhaps on the third floor. Assuming you could stick to the height. That is where we are now. Jim is skeptical that we can dig that far into the bank without hitting groundwater, but you don't know until you do deep test wells. And that would be, if we wanted to pursue this, that's what we would do next. We don't have, I'm sorry?
I'm not getting a good grip on this. I know exactly where it is. I understand all that now.
Good.
The east and west out. And, are you talking about coming down into what's now park? And
No, basically, as you have in that drawing, it would be an extension of the fire barn toward the power company
right,
into what's now the rescue barn.
so the trucks will be coming straight out from.
They'd go out onto
Onto
ocean at
ocean.
the lower level.
One layer would go out on the ocean. lower level.
Yeah, so you're turning onto ocean. Is that doable?
Yes.
Wait, the lower level will go this way.
Part of the project would have to be
And
to
upper
clean up
level
that
will go this
corner,
Mhm.
the three-way intersection there. Or it's it's
Yeah.
a T actually, but yeah.
Talking about, rescue barn?
Oh, wait, yes.
Mhm.
Preliminary, we talked to the power company to, if they would be willing to take the rescue barn, move it across the street, we get the use of it for the ambulances until the building is built,
And then,
and then turn it over to them. They get it, we move into the new barn station, and we tear down part of the old station because the truck would be able to be out at that time.
there's an old, sorry, there's an old, traffic study. I think I gave you a copy of
Yes.
that, actually had that corner, cut off. Well, sliced off the whole,
Everybody acknowledges that T intersection between.
I mean, you would-
well,
you
I don't
would-
know
you
what
would be-
call it,
you would
between
be
ocean and
able
beach
to
would
do
have to be
that.
reworked.
if you.
Right.
If there's,
You pretty much dig out the whole field, right to the edge of the
Mhm.
existing fire station.
do you know what study I'm talking about? It was back in like
I'm not
80s
aware of it
maybe?
either, so I'll get it and distribute it.
If you don't have it, I still have it at my house.
I have a
Yeah.
copy on my dining room table.
Yeah.
Course.
So so is this basically the drawings you showed of the two layers? In essence, just a different configuration, different sizing and a bit of a twist?
We're all on the
So
same
we're
path
still-
going.
Everybody's
Right.
doing the
Trying
same
different
thing,
things.
ocean
Yep.
one layer, beach the other layer, and apartments up top.
Yes.
I mean, that's basically, it's just reworking the size.
Yes, and actually, back when we were on the power company plan, we had a whole building design with all the required, square footages, so we would just take that.
So,
And then,
no.
no, and is the concept to go lower than where Negus Park is now?
No,
So I mean,
It's
simple
basically
math,
at
you're
Roseberry.
going level, Ocean Avenue level. And he's worried that there's water up there.
he just, when
He's cautious.
when you go that far into a hill, you don't know what you're gonna get. So hopefully we strike oil, hopefully we don't strike water.
Diamonds?
Diamonds. Yep.
There is a drill bell up there. You can double, something to find out.
Oh, find out what the level
It doesn't
is.
hit water
Gotcha.
that you can hear,
Gotcha.
I don't think.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, the next step would be to do exploratory stuff if, and it's not gonna be so expensive that, it would be prohibitive.
Right.
Especially if
right.
we have plenty of contractors in the department that might help.
Please.
Okay. So first of all, thank you. And thank you for the green drawing and thanks, Jim, for looking at it. One of the impetuses of having this on the agenda tonight was, this is going for federal dollars now, right? And you guys were close to getting it last time. It didn't work. Maybe that's a good thing actually in hindsight, but now we're going after federal dollars to get support from our senators and congressmen, right? We don't need a lot of glitz, but it's very clear to me that some imagery, some picture, some visual, I mean, pictures sell 1,000 words, right? So I guess my question would be, we don't have to be accurate per se or exact, but we have to be conceptually right and conceptually right. So I guess my strong request, and I don't know if everybody agrees with me, is somehow talk with Rick and Jeff Taylor from the May 4th group, which is our lobbyists. They've sort of talked about, hey, early March, we need something, a picture, a little bit of a story. And maybe it's April, maybe it's shifting around. I don't know what it is, but I want to make sure that we have the best foot forward going after federal dollars. And nothing against Kirk's green box, but that's not, thank God you did it.
It's
But,
basically a rendering of some sort.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rendering, picture, little story, we got it all, right?
So where we would go, and it's always been our plan, is to do a similar effort, the way we did on the other similar project, in that we get the engineers to lay out what's feasible, and that's basically been done unless we hit a roadblock. And then we turn it over to our architect. The engineer has almost gone as far as he can with those sketches I showed you, and some other ones rotating the building in various degrees to get the best angle out onto ocean. But then we would need to bring it to our architects. Sakosha that we work with has done many firehouses throughout Rhode Island. And Mary Ann would control whether we have to bid that and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. But it's almost time to turn that over to an architect to do just
A rendering,
just
right.
blue sky renderings the
Yeah.
same way that NCA
Right.
did on the
Right.
other.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess I want to make sure, and I'm nothing new, but for everybody else here, I just want to make sure it's in time that we aren't crashing at the last minute to get something to Senator Reed.
Well, March is
And we
tight.
all start tripping on each other.
It's not impossible.
Not impossible, but it's a rush. I mean,
Well-
it's pressure.
I mean, just to sort of reiterate what you're saying, I had 0 in my packet and I got this at the beginning of the meeting and what was on the screen first time I've seen it, just like everybody else. So we're never going to get federal funding if that's the way we're going to handle it. So I think that's what Sven is saying. I'm just saying it in a more negative way. Like, so, Sven's so much nicer. So, yeah, I just think better drawings, better conception, right?
So are we getting rid of the existing fire building barn?
Afterward.
The barn, eventually, the building where the houses, the trucks are housed now will go, but not until the new one is up.
Is there nothing there then?
Yes.
You'd end up leaving double door that's there that houses where the one ambulance and the pickup truck are pulled in now. That we redid the ramp in front.
Right.
That way the police could use that for their vehicle.
Okay, so that's staying.
And it would restore the drive around that we have now.
You'd have a gas park.
That's what I was asking. This is, what's gonna be there?
Pavement, because,
This is what I'm trying to get.
hey, Kirk, just hold on one second.
Well, no,
Doesn't say what they want.
well, I know they know, we all know that. I'm just trying to make it really clear. There will be a space between the police station and the, yeah.
Drive around.
And
So.
the rescue squad will be where?
Rescue would be on top of fire.
On top.
Fire trucks down below, ambulances and smaller vehicles up top. The ambulances and stuff would drive up towards the police station and turn like they do now. So Beach Avenue is rescue and small.
Yeah,
So I
And
do,
Ocean Avenue is fire.
so we really got to work on these drawings.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, because it's hard to visualize.
so I
So
do,
Ocean is, sorry, but if Ocean, and maybe that's a simple way to think about it. Ocean is fire, so they are on the lower level.
No, it's not, that's not hard at all. That's simple. If you hear it straight. It was the piece in between that was screwing me up.
Go ahead, Molly.
so when you have a training session or a rescue meeting or, where's everybody parking?
So you'd be able to.
In between the buildings.
On the backside, where the telephone pole, the driveway is now, there's actually parking where you drive down to that ramp, the old ramp. This drawing that I put on this one, doesn't include that. There's a telephone pole there that has, you can't, unless the power company and everybody can bury all that line, there's a pole that can't move. You have to go outside that pole.
Am I right that this
There's a
bill,
pole on that drawing,
Mhm.
pole right at the edge of the building.
Right there.
You see it?
I warn you that you're all asking
Yeah,
pretty
we're asking
tight
detailed questions.
site development
Yeah,
questions,
but
and
it-
we aren't there yet.
So I'm just wondering, like,
Get this done.
is there something we're supposed to be doing tonight that, or are we just like,
You're
this is just
asking
like
me where we are,
FYI?
I think. And this is
Yeah,
where we are.
just, there's been a lot of work going on and the council, we need to.
Okay.
It's nice and simple.
This isn't a proposal. That's soon to come. My plan, my hope would be to give you what I gave you on the other project by March at this level. Something like that. Right.
We do have someone of a building committee, Doug Michelle, myself, Chris Hovey, are on it, so,
What about Beth?
well, that was the fire department. I mean, I guess
Yeah, right.
I'm saying the obvious. Everybody in the room wants to support this project. We want the best foot forward, and I'm glad everybody's working towards that. I mean, I don't think there's anybody not wanting that.
And
I've learned that nice presentation helps.
For what it's worth, Molly, tonight was the first night I saw this
Me
too. I think it's a real step though, from what we've heard. So it solves where do you put the fire trucks while this is going on, which I think is more important than I understood. Honestly, as a non-fire person, I didn't even think of that. That's great. Wonderful.
So you can be on the agenda for March. I'm asking Mary Ann maybe, or let's just make sure it's on the agenda at a
Yeah.
reasonable time that fits for the schedule.
Right.
For the sketch. I hate to say it, I'm more into the conceptual sketch than I am into where the telephone pole is.
Yep.
Mike LaFaro.
Our chief is waiting to be told.
I don't think we accept calls from where he is.
He's on Zoom.
Where is he?
Chris Hobie, can you hear us? Yeah. Exactly. And they're wondering what the heck is going on. No.
He got his hand up, comment about, not waiting for federal funding to get this building started.
Right. I think, I understand what he's saying. And absolutely, but it's sort of like, if we can get in line and get the feds to pay for some of it, if not all of it, let's do that, but yes, to me, those are not intimately linked. It's not only if, yeah, I get it. Yes, indeed.
I mean, can we formally, we don't have it on the agenda tonight, but can we make this our priority? Formally, I mean.
Go ahead, Marianne.
I think, we met with the fire department to talk about their long-term capital budget. And we talked about having next year being the year where we get the final design done and stuff like that and have everything ready so that we can bring the next financial town meeting, the final cost of it. I don't see us bringing the cost to this financial town meeting for it, but get the
Right.
final architectural work done and all that other stuff done, permitting and any of that stuff will be next year. That's the conversation we had with the capital budget with Amy, and the fire department was in agreement with that.
Right.
So that's that's
Yep.
where I'm seeing as next steps.
Yeah.
And as far as federal funding, as Chris Hobie said, the federal funding that we're applying for, the application last year, the deadline was the 15th. And we made it through the first step with you folks about April, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a good question. 15th of April. Unfortunately, the fire bond did not make it out of committee. So hopefully this year I'll make it out of committee and stuff like that. And that all takes place. The final award and announcement is usually late fall, early winter, even as late as maybe even the first of the year. So that'll be fall right into our
Great.
timeline. So,
Great, we have a,
to answer Chris Hobie's question, the federal funding won't hold up what we plan to do. What it'll do is provide us with the opportunity to realize if we'll get it or not as we move forward to the financial town meeting.
I guess I'm somewhat using Rick and Jeff as the trip line to get stuff going. And that's got to be, like you said, the committee meeting is mid-April, which means material has to be, I'm going to make it up mid-March. We just have a lot to do in 5 weeks, and got it.
So we're talking about federal money, right?
so,
It's
we don't even know, by the way, with the change in control in the House, how they're going to even, whether or how they're going to do earmarking this year. But
Yeah.
the one thing we know is we want to be in line if there is a line.
Yeah,
You know, it's like,
I just don't want it just to be solely on the lobbyists. Our legislators have to be in the loop on this as well.
yes, I think that's right. And, we should talk to them about, to your point about priorities, I think we should talk about what actions the council could take to demonstrate that this is a priority for us when we talk again in March, if that makes sense to folks,
Right.
whether that's a resolution or, I don't know.
so
And to Martha's point, Tina Spears was with Kirk. Tina Spears is the representative who took over for Blake. She was with Kirk and Neil, I believe.
Yeah, me.
And Tina toured the fire department for this.
Right,
reason.
no, I'm just saying, it sounds the way we're talking that we're only,
Yeah, it's federal.
I just want it to be broad enough that we don't have somebody who doesn't get included, and that can be a kiss of death. We all
Sure.
know that.
Yep, good. Yep, absolutely. So we square?
I was wondering, can we set up a meeting with maybe Doug, myself, and Tom, and the engineer to get floor plans? So we're all on the same page.
So, I've asked,
Go ahead, Marianne.
Jim Jeremiah is slated to come out here this month, so I've asked him to come out next week. There's a number of items we're looking at, see the fire bond, lighting, the tow lot at the airport and stuff like that. So I reached out to him a couple of weeks ago, can you come out this month? So I'll try to firm that up
Thank you.
next week. And also, I haven't been involved with this project, but now I'll insert myself. Last year, if you remember, Mike and Kurt, we wrote the grant last year. It's going to be the same type of grant. The drawings won't be needed until a later date. So, and also, just so the council knows, if you remember correctly, last year when we went forward with the congressional appropriation, there was a resolution that was bringing into
Yeah,
the council.
right.
So we'll
Yep.
talk to the council
Yeah.
about that.
And it's really important when you talk about drawings that you can't rely upon engineers' drawings. I mean, you need them to build anything, but to show something, that's not what you want.
Terrific. Thank
You
you.
want a visual.
Excellent. Anything else? Anything else?
I understood.
Yeah.
I understood this better than everything, a whole lot of other things, so.
Thanks
Goes-
for doing it. Really, really. All you need to do is go into that fire barn and know how urgent it is to get this thing done. Thank you, guys. Next agenda item is an update on and discussion on our two most active housing projects. Cindy, thank you for coming. And Tom, I don't know what order you want to go. Cindy, why don't you go first?
Housing Board. Cindy Pappas.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Cindy.
much for including us in this evening's agenda. On behalf of the Housing Board, I want to express our appreciation for all of your support. This current town council, previous one and this one, has truly made housing a priority and is actively working on multiple fronts to promote and create more year-round housing opportunities. So we really appreciate, thank you very much.
Thank you, Cindy.
And precisely because of that, it's more important than ever that we keep the lines of communication open and keep each other apprised of what's happening and the directions that the town council and the housing board are heading in, so that we can work together more effectively. Really briefly, for Molly and Neil, just a recap, the housing board was created through enabling legislation and authorized to collect a 1% fee on short-term rentals. And that income stream currently generates around $125,000 a year, give or take. To date, with the generosity of a few key community members, we have leveraged those funds and constructed 7 affordable homes, purchased and resold 2 homes through a bargain sale donation deal, sponsored the creation of 4 year-round rentals, facilitated the donation and subsequent moving of 2 homes that had been slated to be torn down. One was a success story, the other not so much. And we acquired another plot of land which we own in fee simple. So we're very proud to say that we are debt-free and we have a healthy banking account to help us begin on our next project. The board has been very financially conservative in our projects to this date. At this juncture, though, we are entering some real new territory, responding to the community's need for stable rental housing. Our contemplated West Side Road project anticipates the development of 8 duplexes, creating a total of 16 rental units, 2 of which will be ADA compliant. The only way to accomplish this is to seek additional outside funding. We currently have a grant proposal pending with Rhode Island Housing. We are competing with 56 other proposals, but with luck, we'll receive news of a successful award in March or April-ish, we hope. We've been working with Bester Architects to develop our site plan and housing designs, and thus far they have provided their services pro bono, which is a lovely gift to our community. We've engaged the services of GM2 to engineer the site plan and assist us in the DEM applications and requirements. Those applications are ready to go. We've hired Sokoloff and Associates to guide us through the Rhode Island application process. They've been invaluable with their assistance. And very notably, through the efforts of Allison Ring, Jen Brady, and Marianne Crawford, the board was awarded a grant for $250,000 from the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank that will go towards our site work and infrastructure costs. Now, while we wait for to hear from the state, the board is continuing to work on nailing down the housing design and engineering specifications for the project, working through various RFP proposals that we will need to submit, seeking local permits. We need to apply to the zoning board for a special use permit. We'll be seeking legal expertise regarding the best way to hold the project, hold the ownership of the project, and most importantly, work on developing a viable financial model that will ensure that this development will function successfully in the decades to come. So that's what we've been up to in short. I've got we're still working on the pretty pictures because we really need pretty pictures. But this will give you a sense.
It's incredibly exciting, Cindy. Thank you. So can I, yeah, Vanna? I have a question that, you know, you don't, there isn't necessarily an answer to at this point, but perhaps should be soon, given the timeline on the state grants, and that is, what kind of money are we looking for? In order to execute this, whether that, you know,
Yeah.
for example, we've learned that we may, we in all likelihood will have to go to the FTM to finish Thomas, you know, I think. So that always raises in my mind, okay, you know, instead of, you know, asking for something every year, do we sort of say, this is what we need in order to execute these things? You know, my sense is that the town is committed to this stuff. So I'm just curious about that. Sorry to ramble.
This specific project is anticipated to be a little in excess of $7 million.
Okay.
The pro forma that Sokolov and Associates felt was the best avenue for us is asking for about $4 million from the state.
Right.
And then the remaining of the funds, including the $250,000 that we've already been promised, would be a loan through Rhode Island Housing
I see.
in excess of $600,000. And then we'll be looking for a very hefty grants for the solar components.
Sure.
heating elements.
Right.
So about 4 million, excuse me,
Mhm.
4 million from Rhode Island Housing is what we're looking for.
Right. I mean, this goes without saying because we're marching together on this thing, but we should keep in mind, you know, if we're doing a housing ask at FTM, you know, what that ends up looking like. Seems to me, right? I'm not saying anything earth shaking here. Just to keep it in mind.
Just that they, Rhode Island Housing just gives you an idea of the competition and how they are anticipating funds dispersed on this latest grant round.
So Cindy, can you help me for a minute? So 4 million from Rhode Island Housing as a Sokolov Dream State or whatever we're gonna call it. And the 3 million from,
No, 4 million from Rhode Island Housing, 638 free from, as a mortgage on the property held through Rhode Island Housing. 250 hopefully already in on the grant that we had.
Yep.
And then we're looking, we have to come up with another 1359
1.5.
on subsidies for the solar and heating.
And
infrastructure.
what are the, do we know what they are? And we don't have to go into it now, but do we know what Rhode Island Housing looks at, and are there triggers that we can help with? So for example, I'll make this up. If we, as a council, or even as an FTM, commit to X dollars should the Rhode Island Housing Grant come through, does that show skin in the game? Like, are there things we can do to improve our odds? And you don't have to answer it now. I guess
Yeah.
that's my big question. I would hate to be here in, I don't know, June and say, oh, darn, I wish we had known. And so I guess I'm trying to think about what can we do to load the gun a little bit, or,
Mhm.
you know,
Well, I think that, I don't fully know the answer to that
Yeah.
question, since this is,
Yeah, it's all, I
a
mean,
first,
yeah, yeah.
first for me, new territory. I think that, what we've done so far, with our application is pretty compelling. Similar to what the fire barn is up against, we had a very tight, timeframe. A lot of scrambling at the last minute to get the application together. I think that we did, substantiate in that application that there is real political will, in this town, community support in this town. And I think that that was well documented. I think we've presented the need well. And I think when you look at the overall housing stock that the island has, you definitely see a shortage of affordable rental, no question. How we're going to compete with the other 56 applications, I don't know. I think one of our biggest problems when the state looks at things like this is they're always looking, of course, for the best bang for their buck. Our cost of land acquisition, our cost of building out here doesn't excite them. So, what's going to cost us $7 million to build 16 units, we'd probably build, I don't know how many.
Extra, yeah, a lot more. Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's our biggest problem, and there's not much we can do about that. I think the housing board, is financially, fiscally responsible. We have a nice bank account that we can show that we've got skin in the game and can contribute substantially. None of those numbers that were put in the application putting our money on the table yet, but we have I believe about $700,000 saved towards this project. So
So for example, when the legislature passed, or when it was presented to the legislature about the 120 index and changing the math for housing for Block Island, one of the big concerns from some people in the state was, oh, this will be a domino effect. If you do it, other people will do it, and it'll ruin affordable housing for people elsewhere. Remember that whole discussion? And it became very clear once a number of people had talked to that group that they realized how different Block Island was, how it was isolated, all that stuff that we live with and we know. And that sort of turned the tide on their objection. No matter what, we're going to run into the ROI numbers game, and it's a bandsaw. And I guess my question is, it is because it's 13 miles, it's X miles away. We don't have another community. We can't, Arnold Lumber has to get on a boat, et cetera. If there are things that we can do to help even the odds, whatever the words might be, let us know as a council. I mean, I just worry that, somebody has 40 units for 5 million and that's going to win, and it's not an even scale.
Yeah.
And they know that, they just aren't looking at it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that that's where May 4th has been helpful. speaking with our legislators is helpful to raise that awareness of the needs of this community. And I think being small and being rural does help us in those two issues. I do want to just reiterate, though, that when we went for the legislature to increase the percentage to 140
Excuse me, I said.
for affordable housing, that was for sales
Yep.
of affordable houses.
Yep.
The 120 that applies to the state applies to us for
Rentals.
rentals. So we did not,
Yep.
we are at the 120%. It did not,
Right, right.
I did not know that.
If you will indulge us too, Chris Warfel is a new addition to our board, and he has hardly served for 2 months, but he has brought a wealth of energy and passion to the table, as well as wider perspectives on the multiple avenues that we as a board and a town can pursue to foster the cause of affordable housing. So with your permission, I'd like to ask Chris to present a few ideas and concerns that are apropos to this.
Terrific. Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Cindy.
Cindy.
And Chris.
Thank you, Cindy. Chris Warfel, Housing Board. As Cindy said, I've only been on the board for approximately 2 months, and this site's going to be challenging with the water table and the calculations, throwing a monkey wrench kind of into our costing. We're working on addressing that, and we have the engineer's report and have some ideas on how to work with that to ameliorate the cost of remediation of the runoff in the high water table and the poor draining soils. Most of the conversation that Cindy and you folks have had is really based on money, I think, if, to paraphrase. And I raised 4 points that I sent to you, and I'm only going to do the first 3. So we feel, and your next agenda item is going to touch on this, we need access to grant exploration and grant writing. I very quickly found a lot of federal opportunities for affordable housing, 11 in less than 5 minutes. Of course, that's easy to do on the internet because who knows if it's, how tangible that is. But to give us some direction, we're interested in what type of funding does the town support or not support, and broke it down into 4 areas: federal, state, nonprofit, and profit. And each comes with some strings attached, which we have all discussed over the past year, in particularly federal. So as we try to seek other sources of funding to lower the cost of this project, and working with grants, does the town council have any guidance on what type of grants that we should be working towards? Federal has the most constraints on it, as we had outlined many months ago, but there's an abundance of them out there. So it's a balancing act. And will the town, the third item is, will the town fund a position to help manage this? As Cindy related, we are in a different world with the pro forma that we have not tested. I have actually gone online and found an abundance of pro formas for affordable housing. It's incredible how many are out there. It's like we have to find one that is understandable and workable and not 20 pages long in an Excel spreadsheet. And they are out there. But if we are going to be a rental housing development entity, there's a lot of pushback on the town being involved in that. How do we manage that? How do we maintain it? And with that being put forth to you, should we become a housing authority and not a housing board? How do we regulate ourselves and be actually fiscally responsible, able not to come to the town all the time for money, but be almost self-sufficient, if that's possible. So these are critical issues going forward. And for this project, some of it's pretty critical. Grant writing, I think, is, and our pro forma. is pretty important. So I'm not trying to push work onto you. I'm very happy along with the housing board to do this work, but we could really use some guidance on this. Because the world's so large.
When you say help with the pro forma, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means, Chris.
Okay, so normally the model has been for the housing board to build houses and sell them. And by doing so, have a fund.
Yeah.
Residual with the housing board. That is not going to be the case in this project. So we are going to have, a high capital cost.
Right.
We are not going to have a sales income. We are going to have a rental income and we're going to have a maintenance income. And how does that lay out with an annual balance of income or deficit? And then, okay, if it's a deficit, what do we do to make that happen?
Gotcha.
So it's a financial.
So you mean the financial pro forma for
Yes.
the project?
Yes,
Gotcha.
that's exactly right.
Gotcha. Yep. I understand.
So, I mean, I'm I'm proficient in doing that kind of stuff and laying these things out. But there's a lot of assumptions that go into that. What do we do?
Well, also, I mean, we are talking about several million dollars in public money, and that's going to require more than we think this is going to work, right?
Here's
So-
our financial viability. Here's our model
Yes.
to be sustaining.
Yes.
And we haven't done that yet, to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So we've only done the first cost and not the ongoing operation. And so that brings up the point again, do we become something else besides a board? And the sooner we can, I think, get direction, the town can come up with some ideas. I think the better. And-
Well, I hate to throw that question back at you, but I'd look to Cindy, you, the members of the Affordable Housing Board to have a conversation around what that looks like. If there's an alternate structure that you need, I'm not inclined to impose it on you. Tell us what you think that needs to look like. I don't think anybody, I'm certainly not unwilling to look at alternate structures that have an underlying sound rationale. But I don't know enough about, for example, what are the tools that an authority brings to bear that a board doesn't. What are the the answer is I don't know, and I'm perfectly comfortable saying I don't know. But that's, part of the reason, I mean, I would, one of the things that I would really rely on there is that at this point, Cindy has carried the torch on construction of homes, of affordable homes, and knows what works in the current model for that. And now she and you have the beginnings of experience on how to do what for us is a large scale rental project. And perhaps she and you have seen shortcomings in the structure. And if there are, then tell us that.
Can we have access through the town to I'll say an expert that could guide us on the pros and cons of different grant mechanisms? Because there's somebody out there, probably within the state, that instead of us going, starting from ground zero, basically trying to learn this, there's got to be people out there with a lot of experience that could give us some guidance. And I would ask that, that expertise be available to us just to give us some guidance.
Well, in as much as housing is by consensus, a pretty important issue for everybody, we certainly wouldn't be doing anything around grants that excluded housing. One of the things I think we'll talk about when we get to that item is there's grant writing, which is an essential part of this, but there's also sort of finding, grant finding, if you will. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the technical term. And we need, and I don't have any brilliant ideas about that. I don't have any, but there's at least two parts of that. And I know Marianne has been working a bunch on it. So it's something that I think we all take very seriously, and we all have, at least I have this feeling, I think we all do, that we don't want to miss out on anything, certainly, and we want to be proactive in that regard. And as I say, I know Marianne has been working on that, so we'll get to that. But it's not. I don't think there would be anything but a decision if there's housing money out there. Let's go find it.
There are a couple of things I'd like to add. I think everybody should remember or be reminded, because it's a little mind-boggling, that the housing board legislation was passed 21 years ago. It was 2002. And that's a long time. And there's probably lots of things that have happened in that time that it's up for review internally, just how it's worked, how it hasn't worked, what needs to be done. And the one thing that I have always thought was that I don't think Rhode Island, I know we're part of Rhode Island, but as we've been saying, Rhode Island doesn't really, sometimes it's better to look to other resort places, to other islands. I think you probably know that. You probably found that out already. And they have the same problems that we do, that and they're crazy. I mean, I've consistently found Nantucket to be just extraordinarily worse than we are in ways that
But with more resources.
I digress, but I think this is really, really extraordinary story that I went to a planning board meeting when they were doing Cherry Hill. It was one of the last meetings and people were objecting. And literally the next day I came in the town hall and picked up the Nantucket paper. And on Nantucket, the country club was having trouble building employee housing because the neighbors were objecting. Which gives you an idea of the massive mindset they were up against anywhere. And I guess you get that to a lesser degree on the mainland here, but I really look to those places. And I know people used to send me things from, Breckenridge and Telluride and places like that had similar problems. And the solutions never seem to work here, but of course nothing ever seems to work here until you try it.
We can get some guidance from someone or people that know, here's the pros and cons of each of those sections that I laid out for you. I think then we can go look, get that down. This is where we think we should go as a board. And then we can seek out funding opportunities with those parameters. Because right now the world's too big. There's too many opportunities out there.
So Chris, I heard you talk about a couple of different things and on different tangents. One of them was this idea of an authority, which has, I only know a few of them, but it has big implications, good and potentially bad. And as I think about Stephen Pryor's new, and I'm sure he's got his hands full, and I guess Rhode Island Housing, but I guess have you or anybody in the housing board, I sure haven't, gone and talked to any of those guys about sort of that question and what did they think of housing boards versus authorities, and how did they look at it, and what have they seen successful? And it's really more of a question of a big structural strategy than we want money.
I have not had that conversation with anybody.
Yeah. The model. Yeah.
problem with authority, quite frankly, is that it's autonomous.
Yeah.
And it is separate from the town. And that could be a problem for the town of New Shoreham. You may not want that on Block Island. So that is one of the, I would say, possible negatives. Some people will say maybe it's a positive. I think it's one of the negatives. So anyways, these are, they're not deal stoppers. We're gonna keep going forward on this project, obviously, without, those questions answered. But it would be good to move forward on these questions.
I agree. And the next agenda item is to talk about some of that stuff. But in terms of, as I say, in terms of authority and board, my own opinion is tell us. In terms of pro forma assistance, I would assume that Mary Ann probably knows someone, given her CPA background, who has some expertise in developing pro formas. Cindy? Wonderful. Yeah, great, terrific. Yeah, that's, but
I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Exciting. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
that was terrific. Tom? Cindy and Chris, thank you, guys. Yeah.
Before we get into it, just really quickly, took a quick look at the Block Island Times and saw that there was a demo house. And it was located not far from the Thomas property, so I was all excited.
Yeah.
And Tom comes in this one, I said, Tom, look at this, we can move this, maybe we don't have to build this, all this other stuff. Tom looks at the picture, finally sits me down and said, Mary Ann, that's the main house.
It's our house.
No, it's the main house.
it's the main
The house that's going to be demo is a 513 on the property. It's not the beautiful 2-bedroom house you saw, and I had to, how we're going to move it and everything else, so. By 10 o'clock, I was completely
so
deflated and wanted to go home, so.
Yeah,
we're-
we're always thinking that the door's open to any good ideas
Yes.
there. On the Thomas House, we are I'm working with Jen and putting the last signatures on the development. I wasn't aware of this, but we have to do a revised development plan review. Is that the right words, Martha? Because it was a planned development as a set aside when it was created. And now,
gosh.
and now because we're adding a building to it, we're totally within the numbers. One of the new headaches is that the existing Thomas house is about 18 inches into the setback. So it's legal non-conforming. So to make it put the second floor on for a 2-bedroom apartment, we'll have to go for the modification there. But we have countervailing uses. This is, I love that term countervailing, so I use it whenever I can. Yeah, and it is something that is to the benefit of the community, but maybe not totally conforming. So we're going to go down that road, and hopefully we can get both of the buildings that are designed. We have a completed site plan. We have completed, all the utilities are all set to go. The buildings are all set to go. The contractor keeps following me and says, when are you going to pull the trigger? And it's now that we've let the numbers come back down. Some of the numbers I gave you last fall are higher than we had thought. So the additional call for the second building will not be as big an impact unless the world turns over in the next 6 months. So, unless they find a balloon over Block Island. Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, we will.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
dare.
We'll
I
have
wouldn't dare
enough
miss that.
information easily.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll have a
yeah.
warrant for the for
Yeah,
FGM.
but we're on a successful track. Obviously, it's not gonna happen for the summer of 23, but, that is where it is.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Tom. Any questions for Tom?
Can I just ask a quick question about the demolition permit? Is it required that a home be advertised to be moved prior to demolition, or is that like an optional thing, or
It's required.
I'm just asking because
But a home that is under construction, that is demolished and then being replaced, if you're going where I think you are, then that doesn't need a demo permit because it's not being removed necessarily. So if you take down the roof to modify it, and then you find the second story walls are no good, so you take them off, and then you realize the second floor is no good, so you take that off, and then the first floor walls are no good. That's a demolition by construction. Those words don't make sense, but I think you understand my thinking. That doesn't need a demolition permit because the intent was never actually to demolish it. But there is a line between demolition as part of construction and outright demolition. So, and the whole thing is based on trying to use houses that would otherwise have been torn down, that could be moved off the foundation. The
Mhm.
number one warning that we give anybody that's discussing that is any house that's relocated has to be brought up to today's code. So for instance, the house that we're talking about had 6'3" ceilings. It could never have been removed. It could never have been relocated. And that's the problem with most houses. It so happens the two that we're looking at out on you told me not to keep saying Cutting Cottages, but those two out there, they are pretty much to code.
okay.
So that's what makes them mostly attractive.
Okay, so explain to me again why we can't just float that across the pond.
Yes. Well, then I'm sorry, say it again.
Why we can't just float the old Smith house across the pond?
I don't know which that is.
Barge it, yeah.
Oh, technically you could, you've rebuilding. I'll let Mr. Michelle, rebuilding is only slightly more expensive than relocating. At some point you said we should have just torn it down and rebuilt it somewhere else. But
Well, it depends on the house, I think.
it does. If the house, if it's just cash, that's true. If it has sentimental value or historical value or something like that, that's it. That adds to the value. But the numbers speak for themselves.
But isn't there something just wrong about tearing down a perfectly good house? And I'm not talking about an
There
old,
is about junking 6-year-old cars too. I mean, it's all about our disposal society, but
well, we're not talking about cars, we're talking about buildings. We're talking about
talking about
buildings that are in
philosophy.
good condition. We're talking about philosophy. We're talking about, they brought a building over from Mystic and took the life-saving station back. I don't know why we can't float a,
because Mystic paid for the entire thing.
I don't care. That's not the point. The last time we talked about this, there was something about it couldn't be done because for environmental reasons or something like that.
Well, the building code is a big roadblock, but I don't
The
know.
building code wouldn't be a big roadblock where the house has just been renovated, was my point.
No, if it's relocated, it has to be brought to code.
But the house that we're talking about is just, the work that was done on that house has to be up to code.
I don't know.
I mean, it wasn't done that long ago. It's only, any idea how many years ago? Talk about Jeannie Smith's family's house. Isn't theirs anymore.
The Cape on the beach at Cutting Cottages.
One's been moved back a couple times. I know there's a lot going on Block Island.
Help me.
No, I'm a different tangent. I just went off completely, as I want to do. Because it's a beautiful house and I hate to see it being torn down.
Yes. Sen?
Tom? Quick question, and I'm gonna put it under the auspices of Thomas unless I get yelled at that I shouldn't do that, so that it's on the agenda.
Just keep talking
What
like me.
status of the land by Beacon Hill and Center? Just rough, I mean, just,
The land starts by Beacon Hill. I've got a letter regarding title, forwarded to James, and he's working on what we're calling the quiet claim.
Yep.
So he's
Mhm.
working on that.
Terrific. Thank you, Mary Ann. Anything else? Thank you. Cindy, thank you. again. All right, item 9, discuss town strategy and approach to grant seeking and grant writing. I mean, we sort of, I think I just wanted to put this on the agenda to provide us with some basis for having this conversation on the agenda. Marianne, you're doing grant writing RFP, is that right?
So just a couple of things. One is we're continuing to work with Compete RI, which
Right.
we provide them with information and they go looking for grants on the infrastructure. We have one application that's currently in process that has to do with the equipment for the transfer station. The other, and we've also given them some other stuff to look for at this time that we're working on the highway facility. I'm sorry, the fire barn. I don't know
Right.
like that highway facility myself. The fire barn is one of them. And we have a couple others that, the water stuff, we've also given the water stuff that John spoke about. We've also given them that one to look at. There's a meeting, Allison is attending a meeting at Wednesday at 3:00 with staff there to go through some things. The other thing is I have put together and have advertised the RFQ for a grant writer. We'll see what happens, see what we get, and then we'll go from there. And I'll bring it to the council.
Terrific. I have I'm asking this and making this point, not saying that we're not that the work isn't going well. The thing that concerns me is the writing is essential to this. I'm not but I do worry, and I actually shared with you, there are actually some firms that actually do the grant seeking as well. And I wonder whether it makes sense even just to talk to them. I know there are a lot of municipal governments across the country who actually retain these firms. They're largely in DC. I mean, in essence, you say we're talking about financing fire barn, talking about financing housing, or talking, whatever. These are our 6 priorities. You have access to all the data. We have access to Google, basically, I wonder whether there is something there, particularly if, as I've read, some of them are actually, their fees are paid out of the grants, which is sort of interesting. But if that's what it is, that's what it is. I mean, that's it's the grant seeking piece that I worry about.
I think that's what, way to go. What Chris was talking about. Too.
Yeah.
That's what we all talk about.
Yeah.
And then we go home and Google things and then.
And Marianne has more on her plate than she can, than like, you could run on that hamster wheel forever, just doing the stuff that needs to be done. This is sort of we can't rely on people who already have full-time jobs that they're doing more than full-time to also be culling the federal record to find out, what grants are available, for example. It's hard to do that.
But I think it also just goes to knowledge and awareness, right? I mean, and it's not even a matter of waking up every morning and thinking about, can I find money for Block Island? It's like the ultimate consultant at times. It just, they know things that it'll take us days, weeks, months to know. And so I think it'd be a great idea to try and interview them, or at least for Marianne to learn what they do or how do they do it, or maybe Marianne. But I do see that as different than grant writing, and I think potentially as important. Because I just don't think, Dave Sniffin's found some great, or the 2 of them have found some great grants. They've gotten great money. Kudos around the horn. But I have to think that for every grant that they see, there's 10 that they don't. I just think there's more out there. And maybe I'm blind to it. Maybe I think there's a big pot of money, but I'd love to talk to those guys who do this professionally and find out what do they do? What do they really offer that's the advantage? I think that'd be a good thing.
In my scope of services that we sent out, grant funding research, conduct research to identify grant resources included but not limited to federal, state, foundation, agencies, and organizations that will support the town's needs and priorities in the following areas. Then we list all the areas that, so I think, I'm hoping that we get someone. And someone already has reached out to me, it was a company, and it was out of North Carolina about it. So I'm hoping that the responses we get will be folks, not only to do the actual writing, but also does the research and stuff like that. And we did include that. We had Encore grant research in addition to the areas defined above. Areas may be identified through funding needs analysis process and throughout the duration of the contract, grant development. So I think and I have to admit, it was interesting. What I did was I was looking for a grant writer for municipalities, and I found one that was 2020. And I said, all right. Then I found another one that said 2023. Then I found another one. So I started comparing them. The one that was out there that was for a community in 2020 and the one 2023, they were the exact same thing, except for updated by some information. So it appears that the one that I crypted from other folks was successful.
Terrific. Yes. These things.
I'd love to hear how that learning process, because I don't know anything about it, but
We'll find out. I mean, this application is due, proposals are due, I'll have to make sure that typo got fixed. It says 2022. Towards the end of February.
Thank you. Item 10, discuss Rhode Island State budget process and Governor McKee's proposed budget. Amy Land couldn't be here tonight, so I think we'll postpone that, but I know Sven.
Or if I can ask, or if you can help me. Do we know anything about state police and what was in that budget? Or I don't want to open up the can of worms, but
So at the meeting when we had the two representatives here, we
Yeah.
asked that question. And what they said at that point was that they were going to go check and find out the answer to that. I can follow up with Elena and Tina and see what they have found out.
I don't really want to have this discussion. Well, we don't want to happen what happened last year.
Right. Everybody
We're all on the
agrees.
same page.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Discuss an act on moving funds from contingency for generator purchase in the amount of $15,000.
Make a
Um,
motion?
Yeah, I
Can I
did.
just make a motion?
I did in my notes just want to say, you never know in government or in business, sort of the things that are going to end up consuming a lot of your time. You know, you can plan whatever, sort of man plans, God laughs or whatever, you know? And I think this is one of the, a classic example of that. And, from Tom to Marianne to Chris Hobie to Bill to, I mean, this has been the school board, it just has been an effort that everybody's pulling in the same direction on, and it'll be unrecognized. But I just wanted to say to the people who are here and involved, thank you. Because the likelihood is that this will happen and people won't know what kind of work went into it. So I just wanted to, before we get into it, say thank you to you guys for that.
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. What? Oh, discussion, sorry. Yes, we are. Please,
Yeah.
come up. Thank you for coming, Doug, as always. Well,
Doug Michelle is my name. I just saw this today. My question is I have several questions. The state reimbursement is based on the school district's expenditure, correct? So if the town gives $15,000, then the generator will cost the school $65,000. So does that mean that the reimbursement will be based on $65,000, not $80,000?
I see what you're getting at. Marianne, you want to take that?
So what's going to happen is we thought that through, and the school is the one that's going to make the expenditure and pay for it, and we'll just reimburse the school the 15,000.
So then basically you are reimbursing these schools contingency fund for $15,000. You're giving them $15,000 for.
Correct.
Regarding the contingency fund, which is for emergency and expenses that could not be anticipated. If you do that, you'll be left with $8,000 for 5 months left in this year. So if anything happens that costs more than $8,000, you're out of luck. If you decide to put this $15,000 to the school, if I could suggest that you give it to the school June 30th, if you have the money left in the contingency fund, or you give it to them in your budget next year, so you don't run out of your contingency fund. I mean, that gives you $1,000 a month if you go with this $15,000. Thirdly, question is the school spends 80,000, we're going to give you 15. I don't know how the state would look at that if they think it's kind of an underhanded deal. Lastly is the school has a fund balance of $523,000, and you're saying, well, the town should contribute, but all that money is taxpayer money. So you're taking out of the left pocket or the right pocket. So.
Yeah, I was under the impression, just for what it's worth, that that generator is important because the school gets used as our ultimate emergency shelter. And therefore, I mean, I get that it's all, sort of town money, but that the capital cost ought to fall at least to some extent on the town part of the budget and not just the school portion of the budget. That was my understanding.
I don't disagree with that logic.
Yeah.
But no matter where the money comes, it's coming from the town taxpayer.
Yes.
Whether it's 15,000 out of
Yep.
contingency or whether
Absolutely.
it's 15,000 out of the school surplus, which is taxpayer money, which was budgeted to the school, which was not spent. And they're holding the surplus for emergencies.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, you could say that the whole thing about the school, the rec department uses the whole school,
Mhm.
but that's covered by our taxes when school
Right.
maintenance is covered by the town taxes, which we give to the school for their budget.
Right.
Same thing with this.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I get it.
But if you have a problem, what if your boiler breaks? You're not gonna have enough money to fix it.
Mhm.
So that's all I'm saying. If you do this, I would suggest waiting to the very end to give them the money, because you might need it.
Sure, go ahead.
Marianne, from a timing point of view, I think it's a great point about timing and flexibility. From a timing point of view, Marianne, does it, I don't want to say matter, but does it matter?
Oh, yeah, we ordered the generator. And the reason why we've ordered it is, number one, the loaner that we got from REMA, that they've been very generous to give
Yes.
us. They said they only can give it to us for 6 months. Secondly, our generators are very difficult to get. They're hot commodity. A lot of generators, as Tom has explained to me, are heading over to Ukraine. So the fact that we have this generator available is we need to make this purchase.
I meant the timing, definitely on the generator. I got all that, but on the timing of the reimbursement was my question. Like from a school fiscal point of view, does it matter and does it gain us flexibility? I mean, it's a little bit of just waiting.
The only thing I can say is regard to the fund balance that the school has, their uncommitted fund balance, they have a policy that says 3.5 is the difference. The available fund is 309. I've heard a lot about their budget that's coming forward to fiscal year 24. So I think that'll be part of the discussion during the budget cycle as it relates to their fund balance.
Gotcha.
No, as it
No.
relates to their fund balance.
Yeah, how that gets utilized going forward. Any further comments? Anybody? We have a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? No? Ayes have it. Let's see. Discuss and act on board, commission, and committees. Resignation, Bill Penn. Did I miss one? First of all, I want to thank, obviously thank Bill Penn, but thank Martha and I think Laurel and Millie for their work on a letter thanking Bill. I'd like to work on one for Thea as well. She served briefly, but say again.
Yeah, I don't think this actually probably, I think it's just a hangover from a previous agenda. Yeah, no, it's really a hangover. No, it is a holdover.
You don't know what I was doing before the meeting?
Yeah, it just, when I did a draft agenda before I left for vacation and I didn't, I didn't clean it up before I left.
Oh,
and I
okay.
just- So I think that
so-
it's already been, these things have been addressed,
So-
including the Thea Manje.
So a motion would be in order to appoint Amanda Boulay to the
Correct.
Board of the Island
Yes,
Free
thank you.
Library.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. I assume these annual appointments are also part of the cleanup.
That's correct.
We still have vacancies on Commission on Motor Vehicles for Hire, Tourism Council, Old Harbor Task Force, Harbors Committee. Item 13, discuss and act on request for town sponsorship for 2023 Blues on the Beach concerts and the need for a special event license. Jimmy? Yeah, what's a Blues on the Block? That's what
Hi, Jimmy Murray here,
how you doing, man?
organizer of Blues on the Block. Blues on the Beach is a westerly event, which I was told at the bank. So I am looking to do some dates in July. I'm looking to do, these are all Wednesdays. The times have changed as they were in the past. What we're doing now is 5 PM to 7 PM. Getting the bands back on the 7:45 ferry after that. There will be maybe 2 events throughout the summer where it'll go to 8 o'clock because I'll have housing for a couple of the bands, hopefully. I'm looking to do Wednesday, July 5th, July 19th, August 2nd, August 16th, and August 23rd.
Great. Can I just clarify from your email, Jim? What are you asking us for? Because you gotta, I think,
Approval for these dates. This is what I have done, well, I did last year.
I see. So it's not a sponsorship.
I'm just kind of taking over for George Dodge and Phil McComb, the originator of this Blues in the Block. If it wasn't for him, this wouldn't even be going
Yeah,
on.
right. Yeah.
All this is happening at the Town Beach Pavilion.
Yeah.
I've got approval from Dave Sniffen, rec director, to use that space, which we've used numerous years. Basically, I just need approval from the town to do those dates.
So those dates are fine, but I think, do we need a special event license for this?
This is new to me. I haven't, I took over for George Dodge.
In the past, the town council has provided sponsorship for these events. And in doing that, that exempts them from the special event ordinance. It's just what has been happened in the past.
All of us support.
Yes.
So that's not the question. I think.
It's not coming out of contingency.
Okay.
No.
But is the sponsorship in the past was funding or was just the words? I'm asking.
It's right, it's words. It's also, I mean, there is a small funding component because it'd be a $50 application
it's a
fee per,
licensing fee.
a licensing fee. It's a permitting fee, but the sponsorship has, there is language in the ordinance that that exempts a entity from
Town-sponsored events.
the, a town-sponsored event
Got it.
is exempts them from that process, the
thank you.
permitting process.
Yeah,
I read sponsorship in a different way.
I think the Legion was the one that found that first.
And the question I have is if I do have to do a special event permit for this, I do have a rain date place to put on this event. Kristen Kiley in the past has let me,
Use kittens.
we have kittens to use if
Yeah.
we need to.
Right.
So I don't know how that falls into play if I've already pulled a special events permit. If anybody else would have needed one that day, but there was already one pulled, I don't know.
No.
Say it again.
Would you be in the kittens the day that it would be?
If it was raining, we would put the event on at Kittens.
Yeah, it's,
When you're in, like a location like the Kittens, it doesn't require a special events license.
Right.
But on the beach, I mean, I would be more comfortable with a special events license, but I would wonder whether we could waive the fee.
Yeah.
You think?
that's what we've done.
Yeah.
That's what we've done in the past.
Yeah, I agree. I feel better about that. I want to be as supportive as we can. Susan and I and our kids go to all of them, but I want to, if part of what we're doing is trying to get, set a particular tone on the beach, then I think everybody should have to go through the same process. And it's not a cumbersome process or a burdensome process, but I would feel more comfortable if we did that. And the dates would flow from that application. And
Would you need, obviously you would need individual applications for each day.
No.
how does that work, Millie?
Millie?
In the past, we would have taken multiple applications.
I think probably it's better to have, I mean, it's literally one, it's not a big thing, right? And so if you did one for each date, but I think.
I'm just looking because all of Blues on the Block is supported by the community.
Yes.
And if I have to fill out applications that are $50 a piece, I just.
But you're hearing, about to hear the.
Yeah, we're gonna waive the fee.
Oh, you are? Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Well, I don't know. There's a
Gotcha.
proposal to waive the
Yes.
fee.
Gotcha.
And basically, as part of our sponsorship, to use that word, and yet
I
filling out the paperwork means that there's an actual date and time and
Sure.
something
Right,
somebody
you know,
can hold.
a person in charge, and
Yeah.
there's just requirements on the form for,
Yeah.
yeah, nothing that you're not already doing. It's just paperwork.
It's a form. It can-
Millie, on this
Blanks.
agenda,
Not
can we
getting
waive
changed
the
to
fees or should we do that at our next meeting? Right.
Oh, heck, why don't we just do it? This is.
Yeah.
silly.
I would entertain a motion to waive the fees for the special events, waive the special event license fee for Blues on the Block for 2023.
Can I build on that? So waiving the fee and filing that special use permit for each of the nights.
That's what I just said.
No.
No.
Okay.
I mean, say,
Especially-
make the motion
Just
however you
each
want.
night.
I
I
think
mean, make it however you want.
I think you just made a second motion, so we just vote on the motion, the second motion first, and then we can vote on the first motion, and then we're done. Or whatever way you want.
I would make a motion
I'm sorry. I'm
that
confusing things.
that the special event license fee for Blues on the Block for July 5th, July 19th, August 2nd, August 16th, August 23rd, be waived.
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All set. You're
Thank
on.
you
Can
very
I- can-
much.
Can I make a second motion
Yes, please.
to approve the special event license pending filing of appropriate paperwork with the clerk's office
Yeah.
for the aforementioned dates?
Sure. Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
So be clear, we've got that done.
Thank you for your time. I will go to the town clerk and do all the paperwork needed. All right, thank you. guys.
Thanks for organizing it.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Item 14, discuss and act on partnering with RIPTA to purchase accessible vans via Federal Transit Administration formula grants for rural areas. Marianne.
So I got reached out by the executive director, Scott Abedition at RIPTA, saying that he had these opportunities for us. So I received the application, and what I'm just going forward with the council is the authorization to move forward with the application. It's my understanding a couple of the communities, municipal communities are moving forward with the application. And what the application is for vans, there'll be handicapped accessible vans. I talked to Dave Sniffen. He thinks the 10-seat with the 4-seat layout, because that includes the driver's seats, and anything below that size is, you can use a regular driver's license. Anything bigger than that, you need a special driver's license. So we prefer not to do that. And there is a 20% match for this grant. The exact dollar amount of the match, we will not know until the time comes to purchase the vans. Right now, all we're doing is putting in an application for the van.
What's the lead time for these vans?
That's one of the
It's like
problems. The lead
2
time
years or
does
something.
say this, that the lead time could be 18 to 24 months.
Yeah.
Well,
Are there
so-
any questions on this from the council?
I wondered, is this a one-time thing?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. I just wasn't sure, like, if we were to do this for senior citizens and, or beach transportation or whatever we decide we're doing it for, and if it's great and successful, like, we don't have a second bite at this apple. We can't be like, oh, that was great, we should buy another one.
That I don't know. I'm just,
Are you thinking about one or two?
I was going to go forward with 2.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Because we can leave one on this side, one on the main.
Yeah,
This,
yeah.
it gives us a little more flexibility.
Yep. It's great stuff.
Quick question. On the 5-year, 100,000 lien, that I'm assuming it goes to 5 years on the one on the island at least. But does that mean it flips over to us? Am I reading this? RIPTA will hold a 5-year, 100,000-mile lien on each vehicle in order to protect the federal interest. Then after the 5 years, does it go to us?
It most likely does.
Okay.
I have another question. Because it didn't specify a price in here.
Right.
Right?
So the prices, I looked at that, I looked those up. The prices range from, at least now, if we were to get one of the smaller ones, will probably be $80,000 to $90,000. So if you look at price range of $80,000 to $100,000 in the 18 to 24 months, then it'll be $16,000 to $20,000 cost to the community. And we would have to budget it.
Right, so we budget this and then let's say this gets in the budgeting process gets axed. Is signing this a commitment to go forward?
I think pretty much so. If you don't think that we're looking to make this commitment, then I would suggest we don't put the application. I would hate to have them order, well, maybe not. Now that I think of it, they're just going for the grant and getting the grant award, and then the purchase comes after the grant award.
But still, if we're going to move forward, we should be committed.
I would like to think if we're moving forward, that we'll be committed.
But we can't be committed within the time frame.
So we can get 2 brand new vans for 40 grand. Is what we're talking about.
We'll find the money.
I would make a motion to authorize the town manager to proceed in partnering with RIPTA to purchase accessible vans via the Federal Transit Administration formula grants for rural areas.
And that's two, correct? Is that what I'm?
Two. I said vans, but two.
Okay. So I'll second the motion, but definitely other people, there's
Yeah,
comments.
please.
See if you still had your contingency fund.
Yeah.
Be all set.
No, we wouldn't actually.
I
can
just
budget-
want to
we
be
can budget
clear.
for it.
I want to be clear about the use of these vans. What is the proposed use of these vans?
So if you look at the document, it says the use is for all residents. And you can't discriminate. So these vans will be used from, granted, we're not going to have 2-year-olds in it, but it'll be used by everyone. It'll be used by seniors. It'll be used with folks with special needs, disabilities. How I see this, once we have this human service person on board, that person will probably find millions of uses of this vehicle. I see taking elderly to doctor's appointment. I see taking special needs people to appointment. I see it being used by the rec department. I see it being used by the rec department in the summer for the summer camps they do. When I think of off island, if we have one off island, I see the exact same things being mirrored off island that we're doing on island. Maybe this would be great for seniors to get to doctor's appointments, special needs folks to get to doctor's appointments. Right now, the van we have is not handicapped accessible for wheelchair bound individuals.
Okay, so it's for community use.
Yes.
Correct.
So not a bus running around town.
No.
Not a shuttle.
Okay, thank you. Okay, because it was hard to decide, parting with RIPTA, I'm thinking, oh, we're getting into public
Oh,
transportation.
yeah. They're just.
And the expenses on the back.
Yeah, they're the conduit for the federal grant.
Okay. Keep in mind, as I understand, the school still has no bus drivers. So I want to keep that in mind.
Well, we don't need a bus driver.
That's why we're going with the smaller ones.
That's why we're going with the small one.
Still need somebody to drive.
But they don't have the same license.
They don't need the license.
I'm sorry.
No.
Yep.
The person,
I have no objection to this.
yeah, no, the individual who will be driving this will be a town employee. No different than Dave Sniffen drives a van now. So all the insurance and everything else like that will be covered by our insurance company.
All, motions on the floor. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Mary Ann, does Chief Lynch's contract?
Yeah, I had this, included this on the agenda or in the packet when we pointed the chief. Unfortunately, I didn't have it as an item on the agenda. So it's coming back to you folks and just asking you to authorize and approve the agenda, the contract as presented.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the employment contract for the police chief. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Question.
Oh, sorry.
I just had one question. Like, he'll be here for summer weekends.
Yes, he is starting 2 weeks from tomorrow. Yes.
The weekends in the summer.
Oh, yeah.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Contract is approved. Recommendation from the Shellfish Commission for a proposed increase and addition to shellfish licensing fees. All right. This is, if I recall correctly, basically $5 kind of across the board.
Yep, 20 to 25.
20 to 25,
Thanks, Doug.
32 to 37. Thank you, Doug. Thanks for coming. I would, I mean, this looks fine to me. They're nominal.
It was approved by the Harbor Commission too.
Yep,
already,
right.
too, so.
I know that, well, there's nobody here to ask. I mean, it's just disproportionate when I know it's $5 per license, but that's a 25% increase on residents. And then a much smaller percentage increase on that. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
so
Yeah, I see that.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying, I'm no mathematician, but, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm just, wish there was somebody I could ask about that.
I make a motion to approve the shellfish licensing fees
there
for
a second?
2023.
Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
I,
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Mike Shea, you're on again. Proposed changes to cemetery
You're
fees.
killing me, Mike.
thanks for sticking around so I could ask you questions.
Yeah.
Shea Island Cemetery, Sexton. This time around. I assume you have these in front
Yep.
of you?
Yes, we do.
We have not had price increases. These are on burials, I should say, of cremation and full burial. Since I don't recall having an increase in them. I did research of a few different cemeteries, some throughout the state. Some of them were astronomical in their prices.
Hi.
These are in line, and if anything, might be even on the lower side. I compared Riverbend Cemetery, which is in Westerly, and very similar to ours. Demographics and all that, and these are pretty much in line with that cemetery. And then I called a funeral director friend of mine, and I ran the prices past him because he deals with all the cemeteries throughout the state, and he said this is perfectly fine. He said that this was right in line with, you know, what it should be. I don't think on yours it shows you the prices of what they are now.
That was the question I was
Right.
going to ask. Yeah.
For instance, the 250 for a cremation burial, they're 100 right now, and that's every day of the week. So many of them were in the $700 range. A lot of cemeteries, I couldn't do it. So the 250. The digging of the cremation ones is done by us in the Public Works. The full graves are done by Joe Sprague. And forever, Joe's was a wash through. The check would be made out to the town of New Shoreham. He would bill the town of New Shoreham. And so we made nothing. So for instance, the full burials are right now $400. They will go up to $1,000. Joe will get the 800, which will double his fee, and 200 to the town for administration fees. And my work, I have to be up there all day when we have full burials. A double depth is 500 right now. That'll go up to 1,200, with 200 going to the town. Double depth is just the first one going in, the second burial on top of that. So obviously you're digging a deeper hole. The grave liners are required. We are now purchasing those and picking them up. That used to be done also by the Spragues, and they gave that up.
Is that a law, a state law?
I'm sorry?
Is that a state law? The grave liner?
No.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
But we do it.
But every cemetery.
No,
does them, yeah. That's for maintenance reasons and collapses. And all that sort of-
What do those cost now?
350. No. I think 2011 was last time. That's quite a bit of work involved. They have to get delivered down to the ferry. They got to get forklift off the ferry. We have to bring them up to the cemetery. So there's a lot of work involved in getting this. Luckily, we don't do many full burials out here. By far, it's cremation burials. The urn vaults, as you see there, that's an option. That's if somebody wants to purchase them from the town. That's new. We just started that last year. We do require that remains are within some sort of container. It can be the container that comes from the crematory or an ornate urn, And then the vault is just another layer that it can go into. Again.
Bless
and
you,
then
sir.
We have never had set times of when we have burials, set hours. We've always, every day of the week, and it's gotten a little out of hand. Again, these are all in line with other cemeteries. No Sunday burials, no burials on holidays. Holidays is not much of an issue, but we want to keep that way because nobody wants to work on holidays. So those I'd like to add in also.
So Mike, you put some holidays you're not doing it, and on others you have a surcharge.
Correct. Because they are normally days of the week, they're not necessarily, I don't know, are they federal holidays? Yeah, the Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Day, Independence Day, those are the big holidays. The other ones, we would come do that. Again, that has not been an issue, the holidays, but I just sort of want to nip it in the bud. The no Sunday burials, that has become extremely popular and extremely unpopular with the employees that have to work on Sunday. I think we are probably the only cemetery anywhere that does Sunday burials. The clergy don't like doing it because they've got church services to do. The employees don't want to do it because they want a day off. And Sundays is normally the days when families go up to the cemetery to visit their loved ones. And that's why. And like I said, all of these are very much in line, if not on the conservative side. With questions.
So,
looks great.
I mean, I just want to say the challenge here is that when you're significantly less expensive and never adjust, the increase always is shocking, you know? So, I guess I would just urge that over time, if it needs to be, if a single depth needs to go to 1,050, let's do that. Because, you know, I can see it now, sort of controversy over how much the fees have increased for burial, and sort of, I'm looking at the numbers and thinking, oh God, is that going to put a burden on somebody at a really terrible time? But that doesn't mean I support it. It's just like, gosh, it's a significant increase, not because they're the wrong numbers, but because we've just never adjusted them, you know?
Well, when I just saw the new numbers, I thought they looked very reasonable. So they only look like they're expensive when you know what the old numbers
Right,
were.
yeah,
So
yeah,
very reasonable.
exactly.
I don't think
The
a lot of
cost
people.
of not dying last year, like, right? Like,
Yeah,
who wants to keep going?
absolutely,
I'll pay more to stick. my nose
absolutely. Yes, yes.
Right?
Is there a motion to approve the new cemetery fees?
So moved.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, well, so moved, I'll second it. But,
Yeah,
One
go.
question, Mike, do you think these cover costs?
I'm sorry?
Do you think these, actually, by the time you look at all the clerk's fees and all of your group, Joe and everything like that, are we covering costs? Maybe?
We
Well,
definitely were not before.
No, I'm talking
Yeah.
now,
Um,
close.
yes.
Yeah, I'm not, so I guess my point
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, it's a
point
good-
of
it's a
percent
really good- yeah.
increases Is, hey, these are just marginally covering costs.
Mhm.
To your point of $200,
Yeah.
it's not like we're gouging or trying to
No, we're
make
not-
profit here. This
we're
is
not
about
going.
just being fair.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Motion made.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
I,
Opposed, no.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you,
Just
Mike.
The one thing, when a funeral home would call me up and get the pricing, so they charge the family, I would give them the pricing and they would laugh.
Oh, really?
You gotta be kidding me. No,
Oh,
really.
gosh.
Yeah.
Well, they saw their profit going up.
So 18, schedule a welcoming reception
Thank you.
for Chief Lynch. I must admit is on there because I think of that at random moments. And then when I see Mary Ann, I don't think of it. So I just wanted to put it on because we should do something. for the
Yeah, we
guy.
can. I
you know.
agree with you. I think what I would like to do is have a formal swearing in when he gets to the certification piece. And I think that'll probably happen relatively quickly.
Great.
And once I figure that out, definitely, then we can schedule.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That's why.
Again, it's
Yeah.
just the senior moment for me. I kept forgetting to bring this up. And we don't need much discussion, but I just wanted to put on the agenda to please come forward with agenda items. I know you and I have talked about one or two, Molly. But and if you want to raise them now, that's fine. I will put them on.
It's nice to have it open.
Yes, I hope so. I hope people, and that's part, like, just tell me. I like to talk about stuff, obviously. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. It's called self-awareness. We're adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hit your shoulder.
Thanks, and
Thank you so much, Cindy.
thanks, Tom. No.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, you may want to dive in before they actually get affected.
It's cheaper this week, guys. We're having a sale practically. Oh. Well, you know what? It's so funny that you say that. So